Hey everybody, welcome to the Profoto webinar. We are going to be talking about light shaping today, especially complex lighting. So excited to have you here. My name is Jared Platt. You are on profoto.com/live. Just a couple of housekeeping issues. If you would like to ask questions, feel free to do so. We want to have your questions. There's a chat window off to the right of your video screen. You can simply type in your questions there. Johan in Sweden will be taking your questions and sending them off to us. So feel free to start asking questions, whether they are about this or just about the lights or anything you want to ask. And as we go forward through our lessons today, you may have some specific questions. Please chat those in and we'll answer those. Also, a couple other housekeeping issues. We have a weird day today. We have some construction next door, so you may hear some banging, just so you know what that is. Also, we have a video player that's down, and so I'm going to be playing the videos from my computer, so just bear with me as I switch back and forth. It won't be quite as seamless as it usually is, but it should be fine. Those are all the housekeeping issues. If you would like to learn more about the B1 heads or any of the Profoto products, you can just simply go to profoto.com/B1 and /products, and those will get you information about those products. So anyway, if you have specific questions about products, go there. Otherwise, give me a question in the chat rooms and we will answer your questions as quickly as we can. All right, so we're going to start off by telling you a little bit about our shoot and about the lights that we used. What we did is we challenged ourselves to use all lighting. So usually I do a lot of natural light. Most of the time I go in and I find natural light and then I augment that light with my lighting equipment. But in this case, we challenged ourselves and said we're going to use only the Profoto lights. We're only going to use light that we create. We're not going to use any naturally existing light. And so we went to an interesting kind of warehouse that had a boxing ring in it. And we lit the whole thing with the 4 B1 heads. It's called the Deuce. It's in Phoenix, Arizona. Very interesting place. So if you happen to ever get a chance, go there. It's pretty interesting. And they've got a restaurant there, so you can eat after you look. So these are the lights that we used in the shoot. We changed one modifier at one point, but basically most of what we used today was 4 B1 heads. And the B1 head, most people probably know this, but if you don't know it, it is a self-contained flash unit. It's an off-camera flash. It can function as a TTL flash, or it can function in manual. And it also has the advantage of no cords because it is completely battery powered. And we'll talk a little bit more about the battery life that we had on the shoot as we get to it. We can put any modifiers in the Profoto lineup onto the B1 head. During our shoot, we used a beauty dish, we used a magnum reflector, we used a regular zoom reflector, we used grids quite a bit, and we also used soft boxes with grids. So those are the things that we're going to be talking about. So let's go to the first shot, and I'm just going to start playing this, and those of you who have been watching know that we do a combination of video and live here. So we're going to play a video, and then we're going to talk a little bit about those things that we did, and you can ask questions, and we'll answer those questions right after the video. So we're going to go first. Why don't you show the screen real quick, Matt? This is our shot that we finished with. So that's what we're going to build up to, and I'm going to play the video now so that you can see how we got this shot on location at the Deuce. So here we go. Hey everybody, we're here at the Deuce down in Phoenix, downtown. It's a large warehouse. There's no air conditioning, a lot of fans keeping us from overheating. So you're going to hear that in the background, so just so you know what that is. But we have a boxing ring in the background. This is why we're here, to do a little cool boxing background shots. We have Sam and Mike as our models here. Thank you for coming, Sam. And we have Eric as our assistant. And we also have Paul and Matt behind the cameras. So our first shot is a very complicated shot. I'm going to build this shot in. The very first shot, if we come in here and we shoot this, we've got light from a skylight coming and traveling across our scenery here. You can see it out there on the ring on the floor. And so as that travels, it's going to get in the shot. So what we first did is we got an exposure that wouldn't allow that to become a problem, which means the entire warehouse has to be lit completely by our lights. So that makes this a little bit more complicated than normal. Usually I tell people come in and get a decent ambient exposure and then fill in with the lights where needed. But because we have this light traveling around, we want to make sure that that doesn't become a problem, so we are going to light it only with lights. So we are shooting at 200 ISO, we're at f8, and we're at 200th of a second so that our flashes work within the shutter sync speed. All right, so let's start with the original photo, which has no flashes on it. We're going to fire this away, and when you see that shot, you're going to see that it's super dark. There's almost nothing in the shot. You can see just kind of hints of things. Then what we're going to do is we're going to turn on our very first light. But let me show you where these lights are going to be. So walk with me here. We're going to come around the rink here. And you can see that I've placed two lights in the back here. This first light is our main light source. We're going to mimic the idea of light coming in from a window or light coming from some kind of a spotlight. So that's our first light, which is totally a backlight, but it's going to give us the mood that we're looking for. So that's our first light. And everything here is going to be manual. We're not going to use any TTL because we're going to want to specifically set each light, and we're not going to want them to change. So this is our first light. You can see that it's coming down on our subject and it's coming from the back. So it's going to be very, very backlit, very dramatic. The second light behind it, you'll notice, is now pointing at the wall. The problem is that if we shine this forward as a backlight, it doesn't quite hit the wall the way we want it to, and we want that wall to be nice and dramatic. And you'll notice when we take the first shot with this light only, the back wall is going to be a little too dark. So we're going to go to the second light for that. The second light is going to be aiming directly at the light. Now this has a magnum reflector on the first light, so it gets as much light as we can booming forward on the scene to kind of light the whole scene. The next one just has a standard reflector on it, but it also has a 10-degree grid on it, which is going to focus that light to rake across this wall and create real hard shadows. So that's what these two lights are doing. When we come around the ring again, this is what's going to get that cross lighting, these bricks, these interesting tires here, as well as those. So we have the dark shot with no flashes whatsoever, and now we're going to add that first light. The first light is that light that's coming forward, and we've got it on channel B. So we're going to turn on channel B here on our Air remote just by clicking on the head button, and that turns on that channel. I've had Eric, our assistant, turn off the second light because it's also on B. We're just going to show you the first backlight. So here we go, Sam. And 3, 2, 1. Good. So you can see that we've created a mood by giving us that backlight. It's not a shot, but it's a mood. It's as if we walked into the room and saw that light to begin with. So now we're going to turn on the second light, which is going to light the backdrop. So you notice that the backdrop is way too dark. It doesn't give us anything interesting to look at in the background because that forward light is coming forward onto our subjects. So that's also on the B group, and that's also at full power. But remember, it's got a grid spot on it, so that 10-degree grid is going to make sure that that light is raking across our background, but it's not going anywhere else. All right, so we're going to take a shot now adding that grid. You can see now that the grid spot with that light has added a nice texture to the background, some interesting cross shadows happening across the punching bag and those tires. So I like the way the shot is shaping up. It really feels like there's a light source over there somewhere, like a window light or something that's coming in and raking across and giving us that mood. So we've set the mood with our first set of lights, which is on channel B. Now we have to light Sam. So we're also using a 4x6 softbox to light Sam. So it gives us a nice, soft, pleasing light, but you also notice that there's a grid on this. And the reason that we have a grid on it, and I'm not much for grids, I actually prefer the softer light without the grid, but the grid helps to control the light so that it's not spilling over and hitting other things that we don't want it to hit. It allows it to kind of go directionally this way and only this way. And that helps us to light Sam without lighting the rest of the room, because we still want it to be very dramatic. So we're double checking the position of our light here, making sure that we have it aimed directly at her, because again, we have that grid on there, so it's going in one very specific direction. So let's take a shot and see where we are, and then we'll make sure we... That looks great. Okay, so here we go. We're going to start shooting, but there's something I've noticed in our shot here, and that is that our boxer back there, Mike, is a little too dark. I want him to be super dark. I don't want him to be something that we pay attention to, but we've got to light him somehow. And so what we've done is we've added a fourth light on channel C, and you can see that it's got a beauty dish on it, but it's also got a grid spot on it. So it's a very soft light source, but it's going in one very specific direction, and it's very high and coming down right on his face. So we've aimed it very specifically, and you got to be careful with a grid spot, especially with a beauty dish and a grid spot. It's very, very directional, and so it can be very finicky. So the main light source is hitting his head, and that's just going to light him up enough to give us some kind of presence so he doesn't look like a dark shadow. We can see his face a little bit. So we're going to add that light into the mix right now by turning on channel C. So we're going to go to group C and turn on that head, and now we have all of our lights active. So we have the back two lights, those are on full power, both of them. We have the main light here that is our softbox, that's what's lighting Sam, and that's at 8.5, I believe. Yep, 8.5. And then our light that's getting Mike back there is at 7.5. So that gives you an idea of the power rating on all these lights. So let's take the shot and let's roll with it. Are you ready, guys? Mike, if you want to just kind of get in your position, kind of very brooding. Look at her sometimes, look down sometimes, but don't ever look at us. All right, you ready, Sam? Just shift, give me some, yeah, all right? Okay, bring that shoulder forward a little bit too. There you go, yeah. All right, here we go. Good, nice, very good. Oh, I like that, good, very good. All right, so we got some really cool dramatic stuff from Sam, but now I'm gonna do a little bit of a beauty deal for her because she's got a lot of shadow on this side of her face, because all of our light, remember, all of our light is coming this way. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of a fill just by reflecting the light with so we just have a white reflector here, it's a silver white. So we're going to hold that just right here so that it gets some of the light coming from this softbox bouncing off there and hitting her. So we're just going to fill her in a little bit with that reflector. All right, here we go. We're going to take one shot first. You can see that that's filled in like the shadow on her nose a little bit, the shadow on the side of her face. Just gives her a little bit softer and more beautiful light, but it's not as dramatic. So we'll go with a whole series of shots like that, and we'll see what we get. All right, same stuff, Sam. Give me some more. Good. All right, so that is the longest of our videos today. That kind of sets our scene. I've diagrammed this out here just so that you can see kind of where those are from a bird's eye view. But here's our softbox that's lighting Sam, and that light's kind of just going straight this way at her. The beauty dish is lighting just him, so that's kind of coming this way. This zoom reflector, that light is kind of just raking across this wall, but fairly shallow, very, very narrow. And then the Magnum reflector doesn't have a grid on it, and very powerful. The Magnum reflector has a lot of reflection in it, so it really pounds that light forward, and that's coming like this. And so that's why you're getting rim lights on all of them, as well as pretty much the entire, and that little banner up there is right there, so you're getting a little bit of that effect on that banner. So that's the basic shot. That gives you an idea of where we are on that shot. The important thing to note about the shot, and let's go to the photograph on the screen here. The important thing to note about the shot is it was really important that we had that reflector in there off to her left, so that it kind of filled in those shadows just a little bit. They were a little bit too harsh to begin with, so that helped to fill in her body and her face. We also added the gloves later on in the shoot because we thought that made it even more interesting a shot. So that's the way we set up this shot. The amazing thing about this is that we did this entire shoot, and we did basically 3 different shots, and about halfway through the second shot, and remember all these, this is, you're at 10 power, full power on the 2 flashes in the background, and almost full power on the beauty dish and the softbox. So we were really lighting it up. And with all of that power, we only drained the battery we drained these 2 back batteries here about halfway or a little bit more than halfway through the shoot. So I thought this would be a good time to talk about our batteries since we went through a real long shoot. So these are the batteries here. You have a really light battery here. On the back you can check the level. They've got a little, see that? So that gives you an idea of how much battery life you have. And then they have lots of different chargers. They have a littler charger, and then they have a rapid charger, and that's the one I prefer. This rapid charger, it's called 4.5 amps on it. This one charges up these batteries really fast. So what we found is that at full power, we drained these in about it was about 200 or more shots or something like that we took with these throughout the first shot and a half. And then we had to pull these down. And we have 6 batteries with us. So we have 4 heads, 6 batteries, which means that if the other 2 were to go down while we were charging these, we'd be in big trouble. So what we did is we immediately pulled these off of the flashes and started charging them. And by the time we were about ready to do the 3rd shot, this was already charged. So these 2 charged up fast enough that then if the other 2 were to go down, we could replace those. If you have questions, you can put them into the chat window there. And we already have one question here about the batteries themselves, or about the heads themselves and batteries. The question was whether or not there's any plans on making some kind of an adapter that you can plug the heads into the wall. And apparently there's not any real plans in the works to do that, but with the proper amount of batteries, you don't run out of batteries. You can charge these up so fast that by the time you're finished with the next battery, you've got a charged battery. So I don't know that I would ever want to plug one of these in, because I've gotten so used to not using a cord that I'm kind of spoiled that way, and I don't want to use a cord. But these charge up really fast. Within an hour, they're fully charged and ready to go again if you have the rapid charger. So that's enough about the battery life on it, but just so you understand, we had 6 batteries and 4 flashes, and we never ran out of power during the entire shoot. And I think we were there for 4-5 hours or something like that shooting. With modeling lights and full power flashes and stuff like that, and never ran out of charge. So that's that's enough about the batteries. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next shoot then. And what we did is we went into, we did a shot of Matt. And let me just show you the final shot on the computer. So this is the final shot that we got with Matt. Or Mike, sorry. With Mike. Matt was running the... Matt's running our sound and computer right now. That's Matt. This is Matt. So Mike, we did this portrait of Mike. I really liked the portrait. We didn't have to change a lot to the setting, and so this next one will be a little shorter. But I'm going to run through and play this one for you so you can see what was happening on this shoot, and then we'll be right back. So let me go to that one. All right, here we go. So we're at shot number 2. We've got Mike at the edge of the boxing ring, and we're going to do a portrait of him. We're still going to use 4 lights, so we're using the 4 B1 heads. Our 2 original heads that are the backlights, we still have the same backlight set up way over there, and it's giving us that nice mood-setting light. We've taken the second backlight and we've brought it a little bit closer because we didn't want to waste all of that power having it way over there, because we're now much tighter, and so the light's still spilling on the backdrop, giving us that same dramatic cross light and shadows. So there's not much has changed with those lights other than the position of the second one. What has changed though is that we've brought instead of a very large softbox as our main light source, it's now a backlight source. So if we come over here, you'll see that I've got a softbox right here. So that's softbox with a grid, so the light's not spilling all over the place. It's directly aiming at him, but it's still a fairly backlight. It's coming in from the side, and it's really giving him a nice rim light. We're not going to super overexpose it. We're going to give it a really nice exposure across his side, and that's going to give us the other side of the light. So what's happening is you've got your backlight over here that's got our mood setting light is also becoming kind of a side light, just like this one is, and it's going to be on the other side. So we've got the 2 lights back there as backlights. We've got this light coming forward on him, which is on a 2x3 softbox with a grid. And then in order to fill in his face, we're going to have a beauty dish right up here. Let me spin this around so you can see that it's got a grid on it. So we want a really focused light source that's nice and soft on his front so that it fills in the areas where there's going to be shadow. But I'm going to build this out so that you can see the entire process of the shot. So let me set that again. So let's build this out. We'll start with no lights whatsoever. So with no lights, you can see that we've got a really dark shot. On the B group, we've got 2 heads, both in the back. Once we turn those on, let me show you what you end up getting. Once you turn those on, you get backlight on the tire back there and the equipment, and you get a side light on him. So that B group gives us a nice moody light source coming in from the back, and you can see that it's really dramatic. The problem is that we can't see his face, so we can add something on this side of him to light him up. The first thing that we can do is add that backlight there, the softbox, and that is on our C group. So we're going to go into our C group and turn that head on, and when we do that, we're going to get a nice crest of light on the other side of Mike. So let's take that shot. Now you can see that we've got light coming in from our light source, and then we've also got light coming in from that softbox, and it creates a nice crest of light. But the problem is we still can't see his face. So that's going to be our beauty dish. We're going to add that in. We have that on group A. Turn that group on and fire away. And that gives us our shot. And we're just building those in. Now let me give you an idea of what kind of powers we have on all of these heads. So we have our backlights both at 6.7. We have this light with the softbox on it coming in from the left. That's at 7.7. And then of course this one is at 5.1. So now we just have to play around with those numbers. Remember, everything here is manual because it's fairly complicated lighting, and we don't want things to change on us. So I'm going to go into my C group, and I'm going to just change the energy, pull the energy down by 1 stop. So I'm going to pull that energy down 1 stop. And now let's take another shot and see how that looks. Yeah, I like that a lot better. It's not quite so bright, a little bit more subtle, gives us a nicer look. So I'm going to go with that, and let's just shoot and see what we get. You ready? Here we go. Okay, so again, here's another schematic, and you can see from bird's eye view, we actually moved this zoom reflector head over to the left a bit, just because we didn't want to waste any more power than we needed to. We also increased the ISO to 800 ISO for 2 reasons. Number one, I noticed that I was losing a little bit of power on the flashes. I could see the batteries going down. I wanted to extend them a little bit. But number 2, I really like a gritty look for the shot. And so I figured if I just raise the ISO, I'll get a little bit more grit in it because of the grain of the ISO. Plus, with the modern cameras, 800 ISO is beautiful, so there's no reason not to go to 800 ISO. So we moved the zoom reflector in here. Again, the Magnum reflector is doing the same job it was doing before. This gridded soft box is coming in there, and then the beauty dish is coming like this. So, and then what we did is we wanted to do a little product shot, and so we added something extra. And I'm just going to play this for you because it's a cool little thing that you can do. If you have other flashes that you want to put into the mix, say you have 4, or say you only have 2 Profoto heads, but you need to light something else, you can use any other flash in combination with it. We happen to be using a speed light, but let me just show you what happened with this. So let's roll this. So what if we want to do an advertisement, say for the gloves here, and we want to really spotlight those? Let's take a shot and let's add those in and see what we get. But chances are, as brooding a dark a shot as it is, those are not going to be lit well enough, and so we're going to have to add in a 5th light for that. So let's take the shot, get ourselves composed here. All right, so we've composed the shot, we're ready, got the gloves in the right place, we've got Mike in the right place, ready to take this shot. But when you look at the shot, there's a problem, and that is that there's not enough light on the gloves themselves, but we only have 4 B1 heads with us. Fortunately, in every camera bag, I have a couple speed lights. So we're gonna add a speed light to this shot, and we're simply going to do that by using a pocket wizard. But let me show you how it's set up on the camera. So here on the camera, we have our air remote, which is controlling all of our B1 heads. And we can control the power directly from here. But in order to trigger our speed lights, we also need to use a pocket wizard. So I have a pocket wizard tied in here to the sync port on my camera, and I have it set up here on channel 1. So I'm just going to turn the pocket wizard on, and I've got it set to channel 1. We also have the speed light over here with another pocket wizard that's triggering it. The pocket wizard is tied into the sync port on the speed light, but it doesn't matter what light you're using. It could be a really cheap old Vivitar flash, it could be any flash, it doesn't matter what it is. And what we've got happening here is we're zooming in. So we've got this fully zoomed in to 200 millimeters. So that it's a very small light source, and it throws a long way. So we're going to aim it as much as we can right at that set of boxing gloves, and we're going to hope it doesn't spill onto his arm. And so if it does, we'll cheat it out this way a little bit, but we're just going to try and focus that in. And I've got this dialed down on manual to the very, very least it can fire, so it's at 1/28th power. Because I just want to add a little spark of light in there. And so we'll take a shot and see what we get. All right, here we go. Mike, you're on. Chin down a little bit. There you go. Perfect, we got that shot. Now, that was how you add additional lights, whatever they happen to be, into your current setup. So the air remote along with the B1 heads is a very practical way to be working because you can adjust things. But once you need something a little light somewhere, you can grab any light you currently have, it doesn't matter what it is, and just bring it into the system and help augment things if you don't happen to have the right amount of lights. In our case, most of the time, with 4 B1 heads, you can pretty much do everything, but occasionally you need a little help, and that's why we brought in the assistance of that speed light. Okay, so that is this little speed light right here. And like I said, it's at 1/28th power, so it was the absolute bare minimum power just to kind of light in that little glove there. The 200 millimeter is you can zoom those heads in and out, but you could also put some kind of a snoot on it or something like that to get that to happen. But it doesn't matter what kind of flashes you have. You can always augment what you have as speed lights, or what you have in Profoto gear with other lights. Even if you're using the Air remote, just plug in a Pocket Wizard and run those. So it was a good solution for that little problem when we had all of our other heads in play. So just so you know. So that is this shot. A couple questions came in and I just wanted to answer those. The first question that came in was, can you how many of these B1 heads can you use together? And we had 4, but you can use as many as you want. Basically, you have a number of groups, and I often refer to them as channels, which I shouldn't, but anyway, so if you hear me say B channel, I really mean B group. But you have 3 groups that can be TTL run from the Air remote. And let me grab the Air remote here. So you have the Air remote, and on the Air remote, I'm going to show you this on the camera here. You have 3 channels. So let me focus, there we go. So you have A, B, and C channels on the actual remote. So you can control everything in the A, the B, and the C group from here. And you can see that it can either be TTL or it can be manual. So you just, this little top button here will change it from manual to TTL. So, and then you just simply select the group that you want to work with. You could select the A group, and then you can also turn on and off the heads here. So if I want to turn all the modeling lights on, if I click on this, Matt, go to the wide shot. See, I can turn on and off modeling lights just by pushing this head or the modeling button here. But then if I want to turn on and off the head, I can do that as well. If I hit head, it turns on and off that there. See that? And then I can change the power here. So that's what I can do from the Air remote on 3 channels. However, I have a whole bunch of more channels that I can put as many lights as I want on it, and it'll still fire those, but they're all going to be manual, and you're just going to adjust it on the back of the head. And let me just show you what that'll look like. So on the back of the head here, I guess I should just take this off. On the back of the head here, you have the ability to change this manually just with this dial here, and you can increase it by 1/10 of a stop, or if you push the button in and then increase it, it goes in full stop increments, and it goes all the way to 10 and all the way back down to 2. So that you have that much play in the power that you give these heads. So all the other groups are manual groups that you can fire, but if you want to control them from the Air remote, you need to be in the first 3 groups, which would be A, B, and C. Okay, and there was another question. Does the B1 have a modeling light? Yes, it absolutely has a modeling light. It's a 20-watt LED lamp, which is equivalent to a 70-watt halogen bulb. And they've worked for they've even worked for video. I've done some video with them, so they're good modeling lamps. They obviously will wear down the battery a little bit faster, but because they're LED, they don't wear it down all that fast. So they're pretty useful solution. Let's see. Couldn't you just use the speed light in an optical mode? Yes, you could use that and have it trigger it, but I don't have an optical mode on mine because mine are Canon speed lights, and for some reason they didn't put optical in them. If you have optical, you could play around with that, but for me it was easier and better for me to trigger because then I don't have to worry about whether the flash is line of sight or anything like that. I prefer a radio slave to optical. Let's see. Okay, we will get to a couple more questions. If you have more questions, please put them into the chat window there, and we're going to show you one last, our third shot, which we changed out one of our modifiers. So instead of using a softbox like we were using to light them before, our people, or even a beauty dish to light them, we changed it out to be a shallow white umbrella, and I want to show you that one. So we're going to go to that shot. It's a real quick one, just wanted to show you the difference and why we would use a shallow white umbrella instead for our modifier. So we're going to do a third shot here, this time with Mike and Sam together, which means that because we're lighting two people, we had to change a few things up. The background lights are pretty much the same, a little bit different powers, but they're pretty much the same. And we also have the light that we were using to side light Mike, which was on the softbox. We're using that again. This time it's actually doing that function for Sam mostly. And then in order to light both of them, rather than using a softbox, what we've decided to use is a shallow white umbrella, which allows us to spread the light a lot wider, which will get both Sam and Mike, because without it, they end up with fairly dark faces. And I'll show you the two side by side so that you can see with and without that light. But using a softbox, we probably wouldn't get them lit together as well because they're going to be on separate sides of the frame. So let's get this shot done. You guys ready? All right. Good. I like that. So you can see with all of the lights together, we've got a nice rim light on the right-hand side of Mike, which is coming from that original mood light that we had in the background. The background is lit by the other light on the B group. And then the rim lights that are happening on Sam are coming from that softbox on the left-hand side, as well as the original light, the first light that we placed at the very beginning of the day. So those are giving us the rim lights. But if you look up here, this umbrella, this shallow white umbrella here is what's spreading the light and hitting both of their faces. If I turn that off, and that's on the A group, so if I just turn off that head and we take another shot, you'll see that there's a huge difference in the shot. Now, Sam's got a shadow on the front of her face and Mike's almost completely in shadow. So this umbrella is doing a huge service to the shot by filling in the front. But we've got it low enough that it's not overtaking the drama that's being created by the other lights. And that's really important, that we don't destroy the drama that has been already created by these backlights. Generally speaking, drama is always added by the lights in the back, and the front is usually a fill. So let's turn back on our A group, which is just this shallow white umbrella. And let's just fire this and get some great shots. So every time we flash, just give me something a little bit different. Here we go. And 3, 2, 1, we're going. Good. Okay, so let me go back to that shot, and you can see the difference between before and after. Let me just pull those both up. You can see that there's a huge difference between using the umbrella and not using the umbrella, obviously. But the key is that the umbrella allows the light to spread wide enough to hit both of them. If I were using a softbox, it would fall off. Or if I were using a beauty dish, I could only light one of them. And so that shallow white umbrella helps to spread that light. So that's why we chose to change our front light to a different modifier. Okay, so another couple questions that we had here. Question about the battery life was, is it a problem for the battery when you charge it with the rapid charger all the time? And the answer is no, they were designed to be rapid charged. So it's actually what they expect. They expect you to rapid charge them. So feel free to rapid charge away. And that's all I use is the rapid charger. Of course, they also have a cigarette lighter charger for like in the car, and they also have a smaller charger that you can take with you in your backpack or something like that. And don't forget to ask any more questions as we're going, because we're gonna, when we wrap up, we want to have answered all your questions. Oh, and another note on using the speed light. In addition, the person was asking about optical mode. You can also use the Profoto Air Sync, and that will take the signal from the air remote, and it will then synchronize it. So you can use that as well to get the signal. It'll receive the signal, and then it'll transmit it to whatever flash you happen to be using and plug it into. So it's called the Profoto Air Sync remote. So just be aware of that as well. Let's see. Did I use a meter to set up the lights? No, I didn't use any meters whatsoever. Generally speaking, I just walk into a situation, I determine what my f-stop and my shutter speed are going to be based on how much ambient I need to burn for the shutter speed. So that's the first thing, and 200th of a second is as fast as we can go because we're syncing 2 flashes. Although that will change when Profoto comes out with the high-speed sync, so I'm looking forward to that. But until then, you definitely have to stay within that 200th of a second, or on Nikon 250th of a second shutter speed window. So that's the first thing. But if for some reason I wanted to burn in like we did last webinar, then I can lengthen that up to a second or 2 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever. So I choose my shutter speed first based on how much burn I want on the ambient, and then I choose my f-stop based on how much depth of field I want. And so we chose f8 specifically because we wanted to have some nice depth of field but not too much depth of field. And then I choose my ISO based on all the factors involved. So do I have enough light? Do I need more light? Do I need the light to increase? Sometimes I'll increase the ISO just to add a little bit more grit to the photograph. So I'll choose between 100 and 800 ISO depending. If I'm outside, I'll shoot at 50 ISO a lot so that I can deal with the sun. And that reminds me of another question that was in here. One of the questions was, can you use the B1 heads inside and outside? And the answer is yes. I use them inside and outside all the time. So if you've seen some of my past webinars, you've seen us outside. Next month we'll be outside again at a lake. So there's a lot of uses inside and outside. You saw it used inside here, and it lit up the room quite nice. So that was great. But outside, the only issues that you deal with outside is that when you're competing with the sun, the flashes have to be much more powerful, and you have to worry about your 200th of a second shutter speed. Oftentimes is too slow if you want to shoot wide open. If you want to shoot at like 2.8 or f4 or something like that, that aperture is letting in too much light. Your shutter speed can't get high enough, and so then you have to put on a neutral density filter so that it knocks the light down. But that's the only issue you have to deal with. Once high-speed sync comes out, then you'll have a lot more options as well. Another question that came in was, how does the B1 head compare to a speed light or some other on-camera flash? It's about 10 times as powerful. So it's funny because before Profoto came out with the B1 head, I was always thinking, man, I just wish that Canon would make a really big speed light. And then Profoto made a really big speed light. So, I mean, that's what it is. It's just a very big off-camera flash. And it's not very big. I mean, it's this big. But it's a very usable, light, transportable flash. But it's 10 times as powerful. So Great tool. Okay, let me see if there's any other questions that we can answer here. Oh, yeah, well, there you go. So someone just asked if Profoto was working on a high-speed shutter sync, and the answer is yes, they're working on it, but there's no detailed information as to when it'll come out. However, I do have good news for Nikon users. The news for Nikon users is this. On September 15th, you can get a TTL air remote for your B1 heads. So that's right, Nikon, welcome to the club. So that's awesome. In fact, in our next webinar, we will be using Nikon gear and we'll be using the Nikon air remote to control all the B1 heads. So pretty excited about it. It's great for the Nikon users. I'm a Canon user, but I'm excited for Nikon users as well. So it's fantastic to be able to have that. So get ready for that, September 15th. Check out any more information on Profoto's website. All right. How are we doing on time? We've got... Okay, so any other questions you have, go ahead and send them in. I'm just going to scan through and see if there's any questions that I haven't answered. So another question is just tell me about the grids. So someone asked about what kind of grids we're using. And so let me just quickly detail those for you. And we're just going to look at all these different heads, different modifiers. So on the job, we're using quite a few different modifiers. The first modifier that we're using is for Sam's light in the first shot. And that's this. It's a 4x6 softbox, but it has a grid on it here. So this grid is a removable grid, but that's what keeps the light heading in the one direction. And then later on with Mike, we use a smaller 2x3 softbox with a grid as well. So those are the two softboxes that we're using. We're also using a standard zoom reflector, and that's this guy right here. Let me just pull him off. So this is a standard zoom reflector, but it also has a grid on it. And that grid allows it to travel, the light to travel straight. You can see that if I turn this like this, you can't see me. That's because the light can't go through at that angle. So it keeps the light going straight, which allows us to rake it across a wall without spilling all over the place. And this is a 10-degree grid spot. So if the wider that degree is, the more light it can spread. So 10 degrees is a pretty good tight grid spot. And then the other grid spot that we're using is here on the beauty dish, and it's a 25-degree grid spot. So I can tilt it a little bit more, and you can see the light coming through it, so it spreads a little wider. But that's 25 degree, and it fits on there as well. So that gives you an idea of what we're using. And of course, on the Magnum reflector, we weren't using a grid at all because we just wanted to throw a bunch of light forward. But the reason we chose the Magnum is that it throws the light further. It increases the light because it's kind of magnifying the light here with this real shiny pounded metal here. So it really increases the amount of light that you can get forward and pass on from the head itself. So it's really intensifying it. So that's really important. Okay, let me go to the first shot just as I just want to go over that shot and show you kind of where we went and what we ended up with. So the first shot was really dark, obviously, because there was no light. But as we increased it, when I wanted that flare, and you saw that also on the second shot, you saw the flare as well. Let me go to that. In this shot, you saw flare as well. See that flare coming in from the left-hand side? That's actually because we allowed the light to be right off the edge of the frame. So really, that softbox is so close to the edge of the frame that if it came even a millimeter closer, it would come into the frame. And we could have gotten rid of that, and we also could have gotten rid of our flare on this shot here had we just done a little flag. All we had to do is put something in front of the lens so that that light wouldn't strike our lens. But we chose not to because we want it to feel that way. It gave it more of a natural, flary, kind of gritty look. It's a boxing ring, so it should look a little gritty. And so that's that we chose to have that flare there. We wanted it to feel that way. And then as we added our lights, that's the final shot. And then of course you'll see, I just wanted to show you the difference between what we got out of camera and then the retouching that we did. So this is out of camera directly, and I'm just going to, so you can see it full. So this is out of camera directly, and then we did a little bit of work on her to make sure her skin was perfect and make sure that there weren't any issues. So we got rid of a flyaway hair or so, but not a lot of change to it other than just softening that skin and smoothing her out. So that's the shot. I don't normally work this way though. I'm more of a on location, go out into the outdoors or go somewhere. I use the ambient light, high shutter speeds, things like that. So I don't normally go in and shoot stuff indoors. And I really urge people that always shoot indoors to go outdoors. And people who always shoot outdoors, go indoors. And if you always use ambient light, try some flash. If you always use flash, try some ambient. Because it just adds something to your toolbox so that you can do multiple things all at the same time. When it comes to the second shot, when we were working on adding that speed light to it, we specifically chose to use a speed light, which means we didn't have an optical circumstance to use. That's why we used the Pocket Wizards. But any kind of radio slave will work, and any kind of flash will work as long as it has a sync port in the flash itself. Some of the Canon flashes don't actually have sync ports in them. Only the newer ones do. I'm not sure why they didn't have those a long time ago. But all of you Nikon users are used to having a sync port as well as an optical slave. So those can be added pretty easily. Let me see if there are any other questions here. Let's see. How weatherproof are the heads? That's a really good question. I've not really dealt with the heads in like torrential rain, but we did take them out in what could have been torrential rain, but it didn't rain on us all that much. And all we did is we just put plastic over the top of them, and we felt completely safe. And of course, the plastic was gonna have to fire through the plastic, but it would have worked just fine. I don't know exactly how weatherproof they are technically or officially, but for us, they've been weatherproof enough. Of course, we don't get a lot of rain in Phoenix, so I don't know. Let's see. You know what? I began to answer a question, then I didn't finish it. So someone was asking, do I meter the shot? And the answer is no. I've retired my light meter. So I still have a light meter just in case I want to use it. It's in my bag, but I just don't ever use it. The light metering situation, I just walked in, I chose my shutter speed, my aperture, and my ISO the way I wanted it for the shot. And then I turned on the flash and dialed it up to what I thought it ought to be. In this case, because we knew that mood light that was in the background, so this light back here on this side of our boxing ring that was giving us that mood light, I assumed that it would need to be really strong because it'd have to get all the way across. So I turned it all the way up to maybe 8 to start with, and then I realized it wasn't quite high enough, so I dialed it all the way to 10, and then it was high enough. So once I have that, all I need is one light that tells me what its light power needs to be. Once I have that, it's very easy to figure out the rest because I know how far they are away from the subject, and I know how much power I needed on this one, and so I know how much power I'd need on that one. So it's pretty easy to figure out the rest just based on the inverse square law and all that kind of stuff. So just kind of calculate it out in your head and you'll get it right because it's science. But interestingly enough, when I'm outdoor and I'm using the B1 heads, I don't use a meter because I just turn it all on TTL and I fire, and then it gives me a pretty good solution, and then I turn it to manual and then change it from there. Although our next webinar we will be doing completely TTL, so we've disallowed ourselves from doing manual.
Lost the stream for a second. It's coming back on right now, so you might just mention that we're back. We had some kind of internet glitch.
Tell me when it's on.
I will.
And what did I miss?
You're back.
Okay, we're back. We had some kind of a issue. We lost the stream, but we are back. So I'm not sure exactly what got cut out.
Just during that question.
So anyway, when I'm on location and I'm out in the bright sunlight, or even just in ambient light of any sort, and I use the TTL, it's very easy for me just to turn the air remote into TTL, and then once I've got it in TTL, take a shot. It'll do a pretty good job, sometimes perfect job, and then I can turn it to manual and adjust from there. So no metering is really required on that. And then, of course, next webinar that we're doing in September, we will be doing completely TTL, no manual allowed. So we decided that we would do completely TTL. We're shooting on Nikon and the air remote for Nikon in TTL. So tune in for that next in September. The next webinar is on September 17th. It's moved up a week because I'll be traveling, but show up on September 17th, same place, same time, and we will show you the Nikon camera, the D800, and the TTL air remote for Nikon in operation. And we'll show you how we work on location with TTL and how that works. So today we did all manual. Everything we did was manual because we didn't want anything adjusting or changing because it was a very stable shot. On location with what we're doing next month, we will want the TTL to move around because we're going to be moving around and our subject is going to be moving around with us. So that's why we use TTL, so that it can adjust on the fly. We had clouds coming over and stuff like that, so TTL helps in that regard. I'm going to check and see if we have any last minute questions, and then we're going to end here. 1 second, let me just look. I think we've answered the questions. Oh, one last question. What camera and lens combo do you prefer? During this shoot, we used the 50mm 1.2 Canon L lens the whole time, and we were using a Mark III camera. I love the Mark III camera. I love all the L lenses. My favorite go-to lenses are the 2470 Mark II and the 70-200 Mark II. So those are my favorite lenses, but in this case, 50mm was perfect for it, so we used the 50mm. And that is my combination. Next month, we use Nikon, and I'm not as familiar with Nikon. Used to shoot Nikon, so that was an interesting challenge to deal with Nikon. But we'll see you next week or next month. Again, thank you to Matt for running the show back here. I want to thank Mike and Sam for modeling for us. And of course, we want to thank Tether Tools for all their great tools that we use to prop up our gear. And we want to thank Triple Scoop Music for the intro and outro music that we use. And we also want to thank Profoto for all of their amazing products and light shaping tools. We'll see you next month. Please feel free to contact me. You can contact me at jaredplatt.com or on Facebook or Twitter under the handle Jared Platt. So we'll see you next month. Take care.